Welcome to the Safe by Design podcast. I am your host, Scott Ployer. This podcast is being brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network and our sponsors. I've spent nearly 40 years working for some of the best local, regional, and national property management companies in the business. I owe much of my success today to the time I spent at these firms. Employers across the country are obligated to provide their workers with a workplace that is as free from known hazards and is as safe as possible. Unfortunately, due to a myriad of reasons, safety is not always given the priority that it needs. This can be a real challenge, even for the best of firms. This podcast can help you change this. Each week, we will cover a specific topic that focuses on the multifamily employees and/or workplace safety. This podcast will provide our listeners with some very important information that they can use to improve their company's safety programs. So please join me and my guests as we delve deeper into this vitally important subject area. We want to ensure that you, your teams, and your properties are safe by design and not just lucky by chance. Hello to all my fellow industry professionals, colleagues, and friends. Thank you for tuning in to the inaugural episode of Safe by Design, an MMN podcast dedicated to the importance of safety practices in the workplace. I am Scott Ployer, and I am your host. It is with a lifetime of experience in our industry and a whole lot of passion that I bring you the full picture of what it means to practice safety in the workplace. Let me give you a little bit about me. My interest in safety came at a very young age. I have two stories to share. First, my dad was a municipal building inspector, and this meant that safety was a hot topic of conversation around the dinner table each night. As a young boy, I was immersed in the world of safety every evening. In the third grade, I participated in a safety program with the local fire department at my elementary school, where I got to put my evolving interest in safety into practice. In this program, every kid in the classroom was given a checklist to take home and mark anything down that they saw around their house that could be a potential fire hazard. I inspected my home carefully and returned my list eagerly the next day. That night, the district fire chief, who happened to be a family friend as well, called our house and asked to speak to my dad. "Walter," the chief said, "Scotty turned you in. Apparently, you have multiple extension cords coming out from the Christmas tree and tucked underneath some scatter rugs." My dad gave me a look, but even then he couldn't deny the accuracy of my report. We all laughed about it when we hung up the phone. Because I did this, I was able to earn my junior fire chief's badge, which was the prize for participating in this exercise. Maybe you too have done this earlier in your career. The second story is about one of my uncles. My uncle worked at a very large regional bakery facility here in New England. He was a foreman there after many years and had many people working under him every day. As part of his daily rounds, he used to have a checklist that he would note any potential safety hazards that could become a problem to the employees. Oftentimes, my uncle told us that he could find loose nuts and bolts on some of the big, heavy mixing equipment machines that were used to make bread and pastries. Picture that countertop mixer that you have at home right now. These vats were 25 times bigger, holding hundreds of pounds of flour and ingredients. As you can imagine, when these machines were in use, they were spinning at pretty high rates of speed to mix everything together. Occasionally, a nut or a bolt would come flying off the machines. My uncle's reports repeatedly noted this as a potential safety hazard for the employees, for anybody who might be walking by, as they may get hit with one of them. He took it to the plant manager. The plant manager notified the facilities team that there was an issue and would they put it on their checklists regularly as well. They did. One day, my uncle was walking the plant floor, and one of his greatest fears and concerns came true. A nut came flying off one of those mixers. It actually hit him in the eye, and he lost the sight in that eye as a result. This year was 1971, just 1 year after OSHA was formed as a new agency within the U.S. Department of Labor by then President Nixon. Because this was a serious workplace injury classification involving the loss of an employee's eye, OSHA was made aware, and they came out to the site to investigate. In the end, it was determined just to be a fluke accident. You see, the facilities teams did check these nuts and bolts on the equipment regularly as requested and noted it on their inspection forms after it was brought to their attention. It was a good example of the company taking safety more seriously. They used my uncle's notes and implemented what we know now today as a safety assessment and job safety analysis protocol to protect their employees. After going through the company's records and after reading my uncle's reports and checklists, noting his ongoing concerns for the workers' safety under his purview, OSHA ended up offering him a job. This was a turning point for my uncle. He accepted the job gratefully, making him one of the first group of inspectors here in New England. He loved that job, and he loved protecting the American workforce. He inspected hundreds of facilities across the region until his retirement in the mid-1980s. Although he would jokingly say at family gatherings that when he was sent to a location to inspect it, that the company was probably going to be in pretty good shape since he was only able to see half the problems. Of course, that was tongue-in-cheek, and it was only meant to be a joke sitting around the dinner table, but it was funny at the time. So you can see, it made sense that from the start of my property management career almost 40 years ago, that one of my key focus areas would involve safety. So let me start by asking you this question. When you think about workplace safety, what comes to mind? Perhaps the first thing are those OSHA standards and regulatory compliance regulations. Okay, great. You're not wrong. But did you also know that a good safety program and good safety practices have other positive impacts to the business, including increased productivity, lower insurance premiums and healthcare costs, less employee turnover, and we all know how important that is today, improved employee morale and engagement, other cost savings, and it can even safeguard the company reputation. There's a big payoff for companies that take safety seriously. You see, safety in the workplace has as much longer reach than most people realize. And that is why when I was asked to create this podcast, which is dedicated to clarifying exactly what workplace safety is and what it isn't, why it's vital, and what it means to the company and its employees, I jumped at the chance. Safety, as you all know, is a priority in the multifamily sector. At the same time, we also know that safety practices, in the midst of tight schedules, reduced staffing, and demanding deadlines, can often get disregarded, putting employees at great physical risk, the owners and other stakeholders at financial risk, while placing otherwise reputable companies in a possible public negative light. To avoid these pitfalls, Safe by Design is committed to educating and inspiring its listeners to better understand the function of safety in the workplace, because it has been my experience that when a company and its employees understand the why of a practice, they are more likely to be successful in implementing and regularly honoring that practice. As a multi-credential safety professional on top of my real estate credentials and a national training instructor, I am committed to this mantra. Everyone who reports to work in the morning will return home safely to their families at the end of the workday. It is a basic principle for me. Our employees' safety is always first priority. Short, safety first is what the shorter version of that can be. But in my opinion and experience, it is also one of the most business-savvy principles that we can implement today. So let's unpack this for a moment. Think of a company's commitment to employee safety. If a company is chiefly and genuinely concerned with its employees and their safety in all facets, they are creating a healthy and sustainable work culture, which will be reflected in work product, employee satisfaction, and retention. And this is not hyperbole, folks. This is proven, and it makes sense even more so today than ever before. Safety practices in the workplace prevent injuries, illnesses, and accidents. Employees who are healthy and uninjured come to work. Employees who are part of a team in an effort to safeguard the well-being of themselves and their colleagues come to work. Employees who witness every member of a company from the top down committed to safety come to work. Employees who feel valued enough to keep safe come to work. So by integrating these strategies into their daily operations, companies can create safer workplaces, reduce the likelihood of accidents, and foster a culture where employees are actively involved in maintaining workplace safety as a core action. Workplace safety is vital to protect all employees and the companies where they work. An effective safety program encompasses a series of proactive measures, including policies, procedures, and practices that are designed and implemented to prevent those injuries, illnesses, and accidents I mentioned a few moments ago. So the question is this: how is safety first culture accomplished? Well, to begin, a company must do more than just promote a safety first culture. A company must model a safety first culture. The safety first culture in business emphasizes the prioritization of health and safety and the well-being for all of their employees, contractors, and stakeholders. It is an organizational mindset where safety is not just a compliance requirement, but a core value that increases all aspects of business operations, decision-making, and behavior. So let's take a quick look at the origins of workplace safety, what workplace safety looks like in the 21st century. But first, how about a little bit of history? As I mentioned earlier, 1970, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, became a division of the United States Department of Labor. Their overall mission was simple: to protect the American workforce by enforcing the provisions of the Occupational Safety and Health Act. The OSHA General Duty Clause, which many of us know is Section 5A1 of the Act, quote, requires that each employer furnish to each of its employees a workplace that is free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm, end quote. This includes both physical well-being, preventing injuries from known perceived hazards like slips, trips, or falls, or compression injuries, or hazardous materials exposure handling, or when employees must use equipment at a work site with which they may not have properly been trained. Today, this clause is also concerned with the employee's mental health and well-being too. Because of this concern, employers must continue to work to the best of their abilities to reduce stress and anxiety in the workplace by ensuring as safe and predictable a work environment as possible. This helps build trust with the employees. The OSHA General Duty Clause also includes provisions used by OSHA in cases where there is no specific standard applicable to an employee when they are exposed to an unidentified hazard. Much like a fishing net, the General Duty Clause provisions captures anything that might otherwise be missed. Regulatory compliance is next. Regulatory compliance in the multifamily housing sector means adhering to all applicable laws, regulations, and protocols and standards set forth by local, state, and federal governments to ensure that employees and our properties are safe and habitable for the residents that live there. This means following all the rules related to building and fire codes, health and safety standards, fair housing rules, and yes, even tenant rights, as well as maintaining legal and financial responsibility as a property owner or a property manager. Government agencies and organizations enforce workplace safety laws and regulations across the nation. Non-compliance with any of these can lead to possible fines, legal action, and can even damage your company's standing within the community. Now that we have a basic understanding of where OSHA came from and what it does, let's take a look at the safety standards that we consider common in our industry. First, training and education. We know that companies are required to provide onboarding as well as regular safety training for all employees. A new employee must receive at least 24 hours of training in their first year of employment with a new company, regardless of how much experience they bring to the table. 24 hours. That's a lot of time to document for an employee. That's 3 full work days using 8 hours as the standard. We also have to provide new hires a thorough safety orientation to familiarize them with the company's specific safety practices and expectations. Further, when they're assigned to a specific location, they must also be trained on that property's needs. For employees who've been with a company for more than 1 year, the provision requires them to receive at least 8 hours of continued training annually. And that can be in a variety of areas based on that property's location, its geography, its needs, its construction, etc. Companies must also provide regular refresher courses to reinforce key safety concepts and keep employees updated on new protocols or technologies. They must also offer additional opportunities through business partnerships or linkages, like working with insurance carriers or insurance brokers for some of their free trainings that they can provide to their insureds. I'll tell you that a friend of mine who's a vice president of a national real estate company shared something with me that 95% of people who are paying their insurance policy premiums regularly never ask for anything but the bill. That seems a little strange to me. So less than 5% of people are asking the insurance company, "What have you done for me lately?" And that's a good question to ask because they have great trainings, learning management systems, and platforms that they can share with their insureds. Why do they want to do that? Well, it's simple, and it comes down to the dollars and cents of it. Insurance companies are in business to make money. We pay premiums for the coverages that we buy. But within those premiums, it doesn't necessarily cover everything. So they want insureds, meaning the people who are subscribing for the policies and the coverage, to understand what's required of them and to be as safe as possible. So they provide learning opportunities and training so that people can do that. So if you take something away from this episode today, maybe it's this. Check with your insurance carrier or your insurance broker to see what other learning and training opportunities may be available to you and your company to utilize to be better prepared for things like this. Companies also often review and develop as needed, up-to-date, clear, and concise safety policies and procedures. OSHA recommends that companies do this at least once per year. Think about where we've come from in the past 5 years. We've all been involved with COVID protocols, the ups and downs of that, changing our day-to-day routines when it comes to safety. I swear to God, I washed my hands more in 3 years than I did in the 62 years I've been on the earth. But we knew that we were dealing with an ever-evolving problem. And so as we learned more and things changed, we learned and changed too. Companies must also establish a set of guidelines for identifying and reporting workplace hazards and how best to manage those risks. Think about this. One of the things that we can do is to conduct mock drills for emergencies like fires, natural disasters, or workplace accidents. I like to tell people to remember the scouting motto, be prepared, or the Coast Guard, semper paratus, always prepared. We also need to perform regular inspections and implement a system to inspect and identify any hazards or issues or needs to be in the workplace that can negatively impact our employees. You must report these hazards or issues promptly and ensure that they're addressed. Merely identifying an issue or a problem won't solve it. We have to take action with it. We need to make safety equipment and gear available. Ensure the availability and care and proper use of all of this gear. Employers are required under federal statute to supply PPE, personal protective equipment, to all employees. They must do this as a regulation within the Occupational Safety and Health Act. However, there are 2 exceptions to this rule that many people are not aware of. Number 1, prescription eye protection is not an employer-required piece of equipment. The employer does not have to provide prescription safety eye protection when other PPE, like face shields, wraparound goggles, or other general purpose safety glasses, can be worn over the employee's prescription eyeglasses. The second thing is safety shoes or safety boots. These too are also not employer-required equipment. Although many companies do offer some form of a safety foot protection program that allows the employees to either order appropriate safety-rated footwear from an approved company that the management company does business with or a supplier, or they might have an employee reimbursement program where the employee brings in the receipt for the safety footwear and it's reimbursed up to a certain dollar value. Those are two good options. You want to encourage your employee involvement at every level. You want to make sure that they're participating and you're requesting feedback to all of the company's safety protocols and initiatives. This has shown great efficacy across the country in all industries, not just ours. We've learned that the most successful safety programs include the lived experiences of the employees. It has become a standard of practice. And by that, I mean, who better to be positioned to talk and speak candidly about safety to their bosses than the very people who are doing the work on the line every day, right? So next, let's consider what an outsider might see from a company that is committed to safety. First and foremost, we need a leadership commitment. This needs to be a visible commitment from the top down by all levels, from the C-suite to those frontline managers and folks there doing the work every day. We need to demonstrate a strong commitment to safety through actions and decisions. We need to allocate the appropriate resources and provide supportive safety initiatives to make a core part of our business strategy safety-centric. We need to lead by example. Leaders, and by leaders, I mean even those who are considered, servant leaders. You don't necessarily have a big title, but you work in concert with your colleagues every day, need to model a safe behavior and encourage open communication about safety concerns. When leaders are seen actively participating in safety practices, it sends a very powerful message about the company and what it places as important as it relates to its employees. Number two, we have to have clear policies and expectations. Comprehensive safety policies are a must. The organization will typically have well-defined safety protocols and standards in place, covering everything from workplace safety to health to emergency responses. These policies are regularly reviewed and updated. Remember what I said at the beginning of this, OSHA recommends that companies do this at least once per year to make sure that we're staying up with any potential changes to the industry or best practices. We need to focus on behavior. There's a firm stance against unsafe actions with clear consequences for employees that willingly and willfully violate safety rules. At the same time, there is a focus on promoting corrective actions and learning opportunities rather than just punishing people. We never just want to do that. We want to encourage employee engagement and empowerment through active participation in our various programs and initiatives. Employees at all levels are encouraged to contribute to safety discussions, identifying hazards, and suggesting improvements. Safety committees or focus groups within companies often include workers from all different levels and departments within the organization. This is key to getting a true appearance and focus on what all of our employees need. Hey, let's face it. You have a bunch of people in suits and ties sitting around a table, you're going to get that impression of a safety program. However, that may not represent the rank and file employees who are working at your sites, your maintenance teams, your technicians, your landscapers, your porters. So we want to make sure that all of those voices are around the table and they're heard. Employees should also be empowered to stop work or pause any activity if they feel that work is causing an immediate safety hazard to anyone, whether it's an employee or a contractor's employee. And this needs to be seen as not a failure of the organization's goals and objectives, but an affirmative and a responsive preventive action policy. Training and awareness. As I mentioned earlier, regular training ensures that all employees are well informed about safety procedures, policies, and protocols, and how to mitigate risks, and how to use the various equipment that were issued properly. This includes the onboarding training for new hires and the refresher training for those existing employees. Next is risk management and hazard identification. Now, I know that's a mouthful. Through provocative hazard identification standards, the organization can continuously monitor the workplace for potential risks and hazards. Using tools like risk assessments, safety analyses, inspections, checklists, and audits, employees are trained to properly identify problems and hazards, bring them to the supervisors and leadership so that they can be acted on promptly. Continuous improvement is next. There is a high degree of focus on improving safety standards based on feedback, near misses. And for those folks who may not know the technical definition of a near miss, here's mine. But by an act of God, this would have been much worse. Meaning we had an aha moment and we didn't necessarily get hurt, but with a turn of events could have been catastrophically different. We learn from these lessons and we take that information. And when it's brought back to you, if you happen to be a supervisor or a leader in your organization, it is not meant to be used as a chance to chastise the employee, belittle them, tell them they were stupid or did something, that could have caused other serious problems. We want to use these near-miss reports as an opportunity to educate and share. Because trust me, folks, I've had them in my career as well. These are chances that you can use to share with your colleagues and those in your company, because if it happened to you, it could happen to someone else. We also want to focus on incident rates and reports, read safety audits, and take corrective actions as necessary to help guide the company with safety improvements. We want to have open lines of communication and reporting. And like I mentioned a minute ago, non-punitive action reporting. Employees need to be encouraged to report any unsafe conditions or issues they see, those near misses and potential hazards, without fear of retribution or retaliation. There should be a strong supportive system for reporting these types of incidents, with a focus on learning and improvement rather than on punishment. You also might want to consider having regular safety meetings. Safety discussed regularly in the workplace promotes open forums for employees to raise concerns, share experiences, and propose solutions. These can happen daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is. The important thing is to get people around the table so that they're all talking about the safety standards and initiatives. Next is employee protection. We want to remind employees that we are obligated to protect them in the workplace and under the OSHA standards. OSHA also has something known as a Whistleblower Protection Act. And when something rises to the level where an employee or someone has called OSHA because nothing has been done with corrective action on something that someone considers very serious taking place in the workplace, that their employees are protected from retaliation and retribution. It's important we share this information with our employees because we're obligated under the federal standard to do so. Next is safety as part of daily operations. It's part of our daily routine. You want to make sure that your teams are integrating safety into all everyday activities with consistent checks, reminders, and behaviors, reinforcing throughout all the operations what the company's goals and objectives are for that safety-first culture we first started talking about. We want to make sure that routine safety checks are happening, inspections are taking place, that PPE, personal protective equipment requirements, are being met and followed, or something as simple as using ergonomic workstations or redesigning the way that your spaces are designed so that they're more safe. One of the things I talked about earlier is a hazard assessment and job safety analysis. Now, I know that's a mouthful. Before beginning any new task or project, workers and their supervisors are supposed to conduct a risk assessment and job safety analysis to identify any potential hazards and to determine control measures. Those control measures are typically either engineering out the issue, administrative controlling it with policies and procedures, or as a last resort, and only as a last resort, utilizing PPE, personal protective equipment. Oftentimes people jump right to PPE when I ask them what's the most important part of this process. And that's okay. The good news is they know it. But there are other steps that need to be taken in the hierarchy of controls along the way. So consider that. Make sure you look at engineering out the problem, removing it or restructuring it or coming up with an alternative. Then, if you can't do that, setting policies and procedures to address the issues. Then, if all else fails, go to the PPE. That's our last line of defense. In this day and age, we also want to talk about support for the well-being in the workplace. A safety-first culture doesn't only address the physical safety aspects of the job, it also supports mental health and emotional well-being. This is vitally important today. Everywhere I go, I hear about well-being and wellness in the workplace, mindfulness, being deliberate about our actions. This is important when it comes to safety as well. And think about this. This could include things like stress management programs, access to counseling services, or promoting work-life balance for your teams. The organization also recognizes the impact of fatigue on safety, offering wherever possible more flexible work schedules, rest periods, or other accommodations to ensure employees are on their game, well-rested, and alert. I talked about training a little while ago, but another thing to think about is continuous learning opportunities. When something happens, we want to look at what we call a post-incident analysis, or what we used to call the post-mortem. What happened and why? What worked and what didn't? And what can we change it in the future? When accidents or near misses do occur, a thorough investigation should be conducted to understand the root causes. Think about a tree. When you look at a tree, what do you see? You see the trunk, you see the bark, you see the branches, you see the leaves, you might see some fruit or flowers, beautiful canopy on the tree. But that's not the whole tree. In fact, that's the byproduct of the root system that's underground. So when we talk about root cause analysis, we want to get to the real bottom of what's going on. Here's how you do that. When something happens, ask the question, why? And when someone gives you an answer, ask the question, why again? And again, and again, until they have no more answers to the question why. That is typically the root cause of your problem. So make sure you're following this when you perform these investigations or these evaluations after an incident or an accident to get to that root cause. The lessons learned from these should be shared across the organization to prevent their reoccurrence at another location. You can also share them with colleagues in the industry who may not be taking these trainings that you are. Innovation in safety practices is another area. The organization should be actively looking for new technologies, tools, and strategies to improve safety, such as automation wherever we can, or advanced safety training simulations. We all know that artificial intelligence is coming into our sector, with rapid speed. Trust me when I tell you, AI is also going to affect our overall safety programming. Employee recognition and accountability. Employees who demonstrate exceptional safety practices are often recognized or rewarded. This could include things like being nominated or selected as Safety Employee of the Month, or be given a prize or a safety performance bonus or a day off or some form of public recognition at company meetings or in company newsletters. It's sometimes as simple as a pat on the back saying, hey, John or Jane, you did a really good job, and thanks for bringing that issue to our attention. It's going to protect all of our colleagues. There's also accountability across the organization, meaning that safety is everyone's responsibility. While we are all responsible for our own personal safety every day, as a group, we are all responsible for each other. I think of that Bible adage where whatsoever you do for the least of my brothers, that you do for me. Think about that when it comes to safety. It isn't just about you, it's about everybody on the team. We need to exhibit this from the C-suite executives all the way down to the frontline workers where the rubber meets the road every day. People need to be held accountable for adhering to the company safety standards, as well as contributing to the safer workplace environments that we're creating. You also want safe to be part of the company's brand. Safety reputation is huge. A safety-first culture often extends beyond the workplace to the company's external reputation. The company may emphasize its commitment to safety in its leasing walkthroughs. I started doing that years ago. Its marketing materials, supplier partner relationships, and even in its job recruitment, positioning safety as a key part of the company's brand. So let's think about that for a minute. If you're moving to an apartment community, or you have a choice to move to an apartment community, and we're the community that that couple or that family is looking at, when you give the presentation about all of its benefits and amenities and what we focus on, include safety in that. Don't you and your family, and don't you think that they want to be living in an environment where the company and its leadership and its staff make safety a high priority? I know I would for my family. I often tell people, when you think about safety in the workplace as it relates to our employees, also think about our stakeholders. And for us, our stakeholders are our residents, right? And our agency relationships. I always tell people this. When I look at a property, when I perform a risk assessment, or when I go out and I'm thinking about safety in general, my question is this: would my mother want to live here? Now, that may be just me, but you can ask yourself that question, because if you come back with anything other than yes, you know that there's an opportunity there to improve safety. And we want to make sure our people are always working to improve safety. We do this and it results in increased productivity. A safe workplace reduces downtime, absenteeism, disruptions caused by accidents or issues or incidents, and it will automatically lead to more efficient and consistent workflows. Uninterrupted work has the best chance of meeting deadlines. Employees who feel genuinely valued view their work as integral to the success of the company or the site, which naturally drives excellence. And what greater value is there in a company concerned with its employees' physical and mental well-being than its improvement in its safety programs? Think about increased cost savings as well. While not the sole driver behind this, it is a focus within a safety program. Reduced workers' compensation claims can be significantly impacted. I worked at a company where I was asked by the CFO at the time to oversee the insurance department as part of my role as a vice president of facilities. At that time, the prior year's workers' comp claims that were filed totaled over $800,000. So I rolled up my sleeves and we sat down as a group, and it was a team approach, and we created a more focused safety program. And the following year, those claims were reduced to just over $200,000. That still wasn't good enough. We wanted to make sure that we continued driving those numbers downward and reducing the incidents and accidents and illnesses at the property. That's the overall goal of every safety program. The year after that, we got them down to just under $10,000, to the point where the CEO asked the CFO, "Are you sure those numbers are correct?" Well, the vice president of HI and I were called into a meeting, and we certainly shared, yes, they are. And we're not done yet. I don't tell you this to toot my own horn. This was the result of everyone prioritizing safety, which was a complete team effort. You need to make sure it is as well. One person alone can't make these kind of achievements. It takes the whole team. That being said, company bottom lines in and of themselves should never be the sole reason to have or enforce a safety program standard. Healthy bottom lines are a fortunate byproduct of what is an ethical business practice. I'd like to say that again. Healthy bottom lines are a fortunate byproduct of what is an ethical business practice. Okay, so now let's move on. We can also come up with reduced insurance and healthcare costs for our employees. Right? That's logical. Fewer injuries mean fewer incidents, lower insurance premiums, better controlled medical expenses and insurance options, and lowers workers' compensation claims. My sister-in-law, just retired as a nurse practitioner after 40 years, and I learned something from her one day sitting at the dining room table over Thanksgiving dinner. She shared a factoid with me that I constantly use today in my trainings. She said, "Scott, are you aware that 75% of the ER visits on the weekend are the same things that we see all week on workers' comp cases?" So if we train people in our training programs at work, it directly transfers to the weekends when people are doing this type of work. I had an incident years ago where I ran a training program on ladder safety, and I had all of my teams in place, my managers, assistant managers, maintenance teams, etc. And about 6 months later, I got a call from one of the assistant managers that took part in that training. And I said, "Hey, what's going on?" She said, "I just want to tell you something. Remember that ladder safety training we did back in the spring?" And I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "Well, my husband put up a ladder against the garage and he was climbing up on the roof to do something, and I stopped him in his tracks. I told him that ladder isn't positioned correctly, and you also need to have it at least 3 feet over the edge of the roof because you're going to climb off the ladder and climb onto the roof and you're going to have no place to grab." And I thought to myself, wow. And now I know that our training at work is actually helping people at home. She was very proud to tell me that she read her husband the Riot Act for this. And I was proud that she retained what was taught. So don't forget, what we teach at work is often transferable to our home life too. What could be a workers' comp claim could end up being a medical insurance claim going to the hospital. So consider that when we're training and reinforce that positivity with what we do. Employees who feel safe at work minimizes and in some instances help to avoid altogether the time and costs of hiring and training their replacements. And we all know that this is extremely important today. We're all struggling everywhere across all sectors to find good employees. So the ones you have now are your best investments. So make sure we keep them and make sure that they feel valued and protected and have greater job satisfaction so that they don't want to leave and they stay. We can also improve morale and engagement. Employees who work in safe workplaces feel valued, respected, and cared for, which innately fosters loyalty and job satisfaction. Isn't that what we all want as leaders? A positive work culture encourages both teamwork and accountability. It can also help minimize legal impacts and legal risks because when a company has an effective safety program, it reduces the likelihood of the possibilities of lawsuits happening related to negligence and or unsafe conditions. With the ever-increasing insurance costs that we're all facing industry-wide today over the past several years, this is one area that can mean notable savings for some companies, which will have an impact on the allocation of funding in other areas. For example, if the company wants to provide more staff training or increased salaries or bonuses or additional physical asset preservation and enhancement improvements or supporting other parts of the organization's mission, just to name a few. Every good safety program will reduce incidents and injuries. It may not happen overnight, but a consistent reduction in workplace accidents, injuries, and illnesses as a result of preventive actions and awareness are typically rewarded with lower premiums and related costs. And as I said earlier, it can enhance your reputation. Safe workplaces attract talent and maintain trust among clients and stakeholders. Companies with strong safety cultures often enjoy better reputations with residents, investors, and regulatory agencies with whom we serve, leading to greater opportunities and partnerships. A safety-first culture in business is more than just a set of rules. It's an integral part of how the company operates. It's about creating an environment where safety is prioritized at every level, in every decision, and everyone plays a role in protecting the well-being of their colleagues and the broader community. Hopefully this is happening within your organization. Recently, a group of CFOs from a group of Fortune 500 companies took part in a national safety impact poll. A common theme evolved. Most of them shared that for each dollar that was invested in safety programming within their companies, there was as much as a $4 return on investment. That's huge. Ask any CFO when they're going to get a return like that. And then they're going to tell you, not too often. But when your teams work together for one concerted goal and objective of creating a safe workforce, that's huge. In closing, prioritizing workplace safety is not just a legal or ethical responsibility. It's a strategic business decision and investment in the well-being of employees, because these employees are, let's face it, the company's greatest asset. This contributes to the overall success of the organization. So that's it for today. Tune in next time for our next podcast, which will be Effective Safety Planning Resulting in Minimized Impacts to Operation. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and until we meet again, stay safe. That's a wrap. I want to thank you for listening to this podcast today. I hope that I have shared some information with you that you can take back and put into practice. If you have any comments or would like to make recommendations for a future episode, please visit www.multifamilymedianetwork.com and let us know. You can also sign up for our newsletter so you know about our other upcoming broadcasts. We also want to thank our sponsors, without whom we could not make these broadcasts available. Please like, follow, and subscribe to this and our other great MMN podcasts on your favorite channel. See you next time. And until then, stay safe.